My name is Ray Cool. I want to thank each of you for participating today and welcome you to this webinar where we'll try to efficiently provide some important, useful information about Windows 10, Microsoft OneNote, and cloud sharing. So our goal today is to inform, and I'll move quickly, but we will have handouts that will be sent to each of you that summarize each of these topics today. So thanks for joining, and I want to say particularly to the many friends who are online and connected right now who I don't connect with frequently, hello to you and thanks for your long-term partnership. Okay, so our agenda is quite simple. We're going to talk about Windows 10 specifically, the upcoming July 29th. Should we upgrade? What are some choices? Early on, some really important content about how can you secure your long-term license without actually going to Windows 10. So that'll be very early. Then we're going to go through some setup tips. We find that Windows 10 can be a beast or a beauty, and some simple information which we'll provide hopefully will help everyone succeed and not feel like they've entered a new world. Microsoft OneNote is a personal favorite of mine. I've begun using this for so many components of my life, and this is a free application and it's free information simply geared to those of you who have an interest in increasing organization, some information about this particular tool. And then many of us are doing more and more with document cloud sharing. So what are the issues? How do we compare vendors? How do we start into the process? We have some tips and things we've learned from experience. So we'll cover each of these topics. Again, thanks for joining. So many of you have been partners and friends for many, many years. Thank you very much. Many of you, this is your first exposure to PBSI. So we are an IT services technology firm who specializes in healthcare and in business and nonprofits in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So our focus is helping clients really use technology, and we have many, many staff who've been with us for a long time. 27 of our staff have been with PBSI for 10 years or more, and those of you who use PBSI for support services know we've got a bunch of great people. So it's from this experience that we speak to technology issues. We continue to learn all the time, and we want to pass on some of that information today. So first topic, if you are considering an upgrade, or even if you're not considering an upgrade, you basically have three choices. On July 29th, to the best of anything we've learned publicly or privately, Microsoft will turn off the switch and free upgrades will no longer be available. Just this past week, they announced a plan for something called, which is not really publicly detailed yet, Windows 10 Enterprise, where they'll charge $7 a month per user for the rights to use Windows 10, and likely there will be some things bundled with it. So anyway, it won't be free. By upgrading by July 29th or prior, you secure forever a free license for that PC. So if you replace the PC, the upgrade doesn't come with it. So your choice is upgrade, don't upgrade, or upgrade and then immediately downgrade. And frankly, recommendation from me would be either choose 1 or 3. So upgrading, we've had hundreds of clients and many, virtually all PBSI staff have upgraded. And there are issues in many cases that are unpredictable due to old technology. No one is going to guarantee you a smooth transition. On balance, transition to Windows 10 is very smooth, works well. So our support team is here to help with any issues when you upgrade. One request is if you're going to upgrade a large number of PCs and you're not involving us in the upgrade, let us know in advance. Just send us an email so that we're aware that on a certain time you might have some support needs related to this. So what we've learned about compatibility, most software is quite compatible from prior versions of Windows to Windows 10. So some specifics to be aware of. If you use Dragon Medical, you want to make sure you have the current version, Practice Edition 2. Otherwise, contact us before you upgrade to Windows 10. If you use Label View or Procom, there are minor, easy to fix issues. Just let PBSI know, we can help. And generally speaking, older software where you'll have issues if a software is old enough that files are stored in the programs folder, which dates back probably 10 years or prior. And again, we can help, but you need to be aware that individual PCs, pay attention to what software is installed on that PC. If there's something really old, then pay attention to it. So it won't take an hour, but I'd say plan an hour for each download and setup. You will want some setup done, and that's what we're going to talk about. And I'd also recommend spending 15 minutes or so with each employee each of us have our own plans for training employees, but while most of this is intuitive, a little bit of information will really help. So planning, key recommendation. So one choice, Windows 7 is solid. It will remain solid. End of life is planned for 2020, so that is some time away. It's not forever, but it's a perfectly legitimate choice. You want the safe path, the no hassle path, stay with Windows 7. So this interim choice, you can choose to upgrade and then you can immediately downgrade. And the way you do that is you choose the upgrade and then you go, as soon as you get Windows 10, settings, update and security, recovery, go back to Windows, whatever your version was. And you will have invested an hour in the process, but you will have secured your license and you're still using Windows 7. So just be aware that's an option that works quite well, and we've seen very few issues. I won't say no issues in doing that upgrade and downgrade. Okay, so those are your basic choices. So Windows 10, what are the keys from our perspective in helping people live happily and productively with Windows 10? So part of it is visual. We want to follow the principle of making things simple instead of complex. File access, this can be a frustration or a beauty with Windows 10, so just some information we'll provide will really help here. Learning some things about the Settings app. There are just a few dozen choices. I shouldn't say just. There are several choices that make a difference, and beyond that, most of, and we'll cover those that are really key today. And then you want to make sure your PC is secure. Please don't fail to have current antivirus. This is a center point of PBSI services for clients, antivirus and online security. But if you buy a new PC, please make sure you have antivirus. It's a dangerous world out there. Okay, browser setup, it's a key issue. Microsoft settings, if I'm going to find fault, there are many settings that I would not choose that are Microsoft-centric, about advertising, about defaults to Bing instead of Google for searches and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then just want to say, be prepared for compatibility issues. They won't be pervasive, but they will happen. So I'm going to use a document that we've created for Windows 10 setup to go into a bit of details, and I'll do some demonstrating as I go. So this document that you see in front of you is 4 pages long, and much of this is intended for someone who either has already upgraded and now you want to customize, or you haven't yet upgraded, you want to learn some of the things that are important. So I'm going to go pretty quickly, and I won't demonstrate everything, but so visual productivity. The starting place with Windows 10 is the Start menu. So lower left-hand corner of my screen, I push my Start menu button. So some things that you'll notice right away, this box, there's something called Live Tile that comes with Windows 10. It's turned on, and when you first get Windows 10, you'll find a whole bunch of your boxes going wild. That is this feature called Live Tile. The first thing I'd recommend is turn it off. So use it if you wish to, but when you right-click on the icon, one of your choices is turn Live Tile off. And the first thing I do with a Windows 10 PC is I go through each one of these and I right-click and I see if there is, in this case, an option. If it's off, your option will be to turn it on. I don't want to do that. If it's on, your option is to turn it off. So the reason for this, it's updating things behind the scenes and just wasting processor cycles. No need to make your PC slower with things that when you click on whether it will update, so why does it need to be doing it behind the scenes? Okay, another visual thing, this is personal preference, is to make this organized, I like to size everything the same. So you'll see there's medium, large, and small, so I'm going to resize everything to medium. So this is personal preference, but it helps be organized. And then you can place icons on your Start menu. So this is the Windows 10 Start menu. You can place them anywhere, but they will drop into patterns. And my personal preference, business apps, utilities, or system apps, you can organize these in multiple sections. So we'll talk about a setting that allows the Start menu to take the entire screen, and that's a clear, definite recommendation. Do not do that. I'll show you exactly how you turn that off. But with Windows 8, the entire screen was taken up with the Start menu, and people said, where is Windows? And everybody was confused. So it's a really important setting. You turn it into Windows 8 again. So, and you can have more or less of your screen taken up with the Start menu. So that's one key, is turn Live Tiles off and personalize your Start menu. So I'm going to move on to Taskbar. So this, there's some personal preference, of course, with this, but Taskbar is what's at the bottom of your screen. You could set it to the top or the right or the left, but most of us, it's on the bottom. And so what are the issues with the Taskbar? Some of these are personal preference. Some of these are actually pretty important for productivity. So which apps do you want on your Taskbar? The shortest way to execute something is have it on your Taskbar. So Microsoft Outlook is on my Taskbar, and if I want to start Outlook, I just push that button. Go to Meeting, Google Chrome, that's what I use as my web browser, although there's other choices. One button from the Taskbar, that's because this app is added to the Taskbar. So the way you add apps to either your Start menu or your Taskbar, I'll just be really quick with this, is when you push your Start button and you choose All Apps, all of the apps installed on your computer display. If I find one that I would like installed, then I would come to that and right-click, and I would say, in this case, it is on my Start menu, so I would unpin it instead of pin it. And then I would choose to pin it to the Taskbar or not. So you can either pin it to the Start menu or to the Taskbar. So I choose a very, very small group of apps on my Taskbar that I want to have quick access to, and then the wider group on my Start menu. So once somebody understands how to customize the apps that display, it can just really be a time saver. Okay, so some other settings with the Taskbar properties that I'm going to recommend. And some of these are personal preference, so I'm going to look at the properties on the Taskbar. So I right-clicked on my Taskbar, and I prefer small Taskbar buttons. So the reason is, you see on my Taskbar, I have several active apps, and I have several other apps. If I choose not to use small items, I'm going to say OK now, and you'll see at the bottom of my screen, notice the change. Now I have less room for things, so I'm not really, I don't care that I can read the things in the Taskbar, but I'm going to set that to use small buttons, and I can fit more things down here without confusion. So another setting here in the Taskbar, the best option is combine when it's full. So if you have 3 Excel spreadsheets open, they'll show us 3 tabs unless you don't have enough room, in which case then you'll have Excel to choose from. So there's some other choices here that are useful, but generally none of these other toolbars are generally needed. So just a couple of settings there that are important. So I'm going to move on now. So we've talked about the menu, we've talked about the Taskbar. I'm going to spend a minute with File Explorer. So it used to be called Windows Explorer. It's the same thing. Windows Explorer to me is about the most important tool on my PC, because dozens of times every day I'm going to open up files that exist somewhere on our network. So at PBSI, we have a policy, no company documents on C drives, and we recommend this to every organization so that nobody worries about backing up individual PCs. And for those of you with security concerns about that, because I have payroll information or whatever on my PC, those are easily addressed, and I'd highly recommend that even at the highest level of your organization, no documents on C drives. Okay, so what does that mean? That means when I go to File Explorer, it's going to allow me to navigate to any place on our network. So I'm going to come back here and just use this a bit and talk about why we have some recommendations associated with it. So first, we recommend the detail view, so that when you click on a folder, you see the folder name, you see some information about it, and if I drill into a particular area, I see file names, I see date last modified, and so forth. So that's a preference, but tends to be pretty important for productivity. And you can set which columns display, and we can make some recommendations here. And then I'm going to make a comment and spend some time with quick access. So this is a new feature in Windows 10. I believe it came out in Windows 8, but for Windows 7 users, it's new. And so the only really bad thing they did with Windows 10 is they replaced what used to be favorites. So it used to be when you went to Windows or File Explorer, you had your favorites, you could set them so you wouldn't have to do multiple clicks to get to a certain file location. Well, that's gone with Windows 10. They've replaced it with something similar, which is better and worse. It's called quick access. But so how to use that feature? Quick access is the thing that appears at the top of your list when you go to File Explorer. So everything else I have closed down, and so what I have done on my PC is set one-click links. These are shortcuts that have been created, and the instructions will give you to exactly how to create these. But so I don't have to drill into getting to one of these folders. In my case, might be 3, 4, 5, 6 clicks. When I go to our E drive and a division and a subfolder and a subfolder, so with one click I can get to whatever is in that folder, and so I can go other places, but making these shortcuts is really, really helpful. And there are 3 different methods of creating shortcuts, including you can convert your favorites, but Microsoft doesn't really make it easy to tell you how. So if you have favorites on your PC before you upgrade, this method 2 will show you how to convert your favorites directly to quick access. Okay, so really important. And personal pet peeve, when I see somebody using Microsoft Word to open a Word file or use Excel to open an Excel file, I think that's dumb. Well, okay, that may be a little strong, but Windows Explorer has this benefit of finding files no matter what type of file they are. And if you're looking for a PDF and you happen to see it and you don't find it, Word is not going to find it. So you can find no matter what the file type is, and Windows Explorer has this really important benefit of seeing in subdirectories. So if I'm searching for a certain customer name, no matter what subfolder structure exists, it will find that with one search. That doesn't happen in Word or Excel. It happens in Windows Explorer. So this recommendation up here, use File Explorer for all searches. It's something that we try to teach staff at PBSI, not because we care to control life like Big Brother, but when somebody learns a productivity thing that saves them 8 minutes every week over a long period of time, that's useful. Okay, so what else about settings? So we're going to look at the Settings app. So the Settings app is new with Windows 10, and they've taken many, not all, many of the functions that used to be in Control Panel, and they've put them in this Settings app. And there are 8 sections in the Settings app: accounts, personalization, system, and so forth. And so among the hundreds of choices, there are only a few that we're going to talk about that might be missed or might be misused. So I'm going to use the Settings app. I put that in my taskbar. So when I bring, this is the Settings app. So I said that wrong. There are 9, 5 plus 4. These are the main areas in the Settings app. So first, we're going to look at accounts. So I want to make sure that I have a Microsoft account that's set up. If you don't have a Microsoft account, strongly recommend you add one. It's free. It will help a lot of things that you do, extending to OneNote and Office, but it will save information about you that will help you as time goes along. So in the Settings app, I'm not going to take these in geographic sequence. I'm going to start with accounts. And here is where you come down and you set your Microsoft account. So I have 2 different Microsoft accounts, and I'm logged in all the time to both of them, as well as to my Gmail account and to my, so you can be logged into your AOL account or whatever other accounts you have so that you don't have to keep logging in. So this accounts, your email and accounts tab is useful. Sign-in options. Really interesting things that I'm sure a lot of people miss. So under accounts, the sign-in options, there are some choices that are useful. What happens when my PC wakes up? There's have security implications. But one thing that's really useful is this PIN. So I've set up a PIN on my PC, which is why it says change instead of add. So that's a 4-digit number. And when I sit down to my PC, I can enter in my 4-digit number instead of my longer security code. It's actually explained that this is more secure than a long complex password because it only works when I'm sitting literally at my PC, and as long as I don't give away that 4-digit number, there is no such thing as a bot on the internet that can get to it, so it can't guess my 4-digit PIN, but it sure is easier for me. So that's for logging into Windows PIN. If you have a tablet or a laptop and you have Windows 10, there's an additional option to set your picture, and you can have your photograph that it takes of you and actually logs in. When I'm looking at my Microsoft Surface, the camera's turned on, it's looking for me, it tells me to look straight into it, and in a few seconds it's logged in. I don't even have to type my PIN. So a couple of choices there that if you never knew about it, you'd have wasted a lot of time over the years because those setup options can be useful. Okay, personalization. Much of this is preference, but this one thing that's highlighted, here's where we find the start menu option that says do not use full start screen. So, but I'm going to go to this in the settings application. So this is personalization. And there's some really the beautiful graphics, and you can have a slideshow that's set where the background of your PC changes every 10 minutes. I just changed mine to 1, so I have a theme and a slideshow that's set. And I'm going to make a comment about these themes and slideshows. There is no reason on earth, of course this is personal opinion, that you would need to use any screensaver from anybody else than Microsoft. They have hundreds, probably thousands, and they're some really beautiful screensavers, but they're secure. Screensavers are among the very worst offenders of any website you can go to. The most likely place to get a virus is a screensaver site where they're burying bad malware inside of a beautiful site with Christian music. And what kind of a beautiful site would ever contain something bad? Well, if you were really smart and you were a bad guy, you might decide that's where you want to put your bad stuff. So anyway, but the themes that are available are very easy to set up. So a couple of the other settings choices here. Lock screen, you can choose some information about what happens when your screen wakes up. Themes, this is where under theme setting you would choose, and I downloaded some themes, so I can choose to a different theme that I've downloaded by making a click here. I'm not going to do that because I really like my theme right now, but it's very easy to go back and forth. So, and the start menu, so the most important thing of all of this, under personalization, the start menu is this setting that says use start full screen. Make sure that's turned off. Otherwise, your start menu, when you pick it, would take your entire screen. And you don't want that. Okay, so all of these others are choice related. Okay, system, I'm not going to go here to demonstrate, but particularly if you use a laptop or a tablet, you want to pay attention to your display settings because some of these are important. Tablet mode, you probably want turned off. The power settings, including what happens when the unit goes to sleep. Does Wi-Fi turn off? Can be really important. It seems like, well, my PC just went dead, and you have to get out of what you're doing and log back in simply because of the one setting that's under system and Wi-Fi power settings. Okay. Devices also, the only thing of real significance is if you have a laptop or a tablet with a touchpad, there's an important setting here. If anybody's used the touchpad and you know when you make a slight move over it with your thumb and all of a sudden it's made an entry in an application, you're thinking, wow, I'm typing, and all of a sudden I'm typing somewhere else. There used to be a setting in Windows 10 called Disable Touchpad during keyboard input. Well, now that setting is turned into something completely different. You'd never guess it, but you take this touchpad setting, set it to the longest delay possible, and it accomplishes this very well. So, okay, so network and internet, this is where the Wi-Fi setting is, and I'm going to ignore that for PC users, but for tablet and laptop users, useful info. All right, privacy. Here's a case where people feel differently. This isn't a right and wrong thing, but in the privacy setting, the default, and Microsoft, by the way, will change the settings you make. This is a bit frustrating. We've all seen it. I continue to see it. We get the latest update, and all of a sudden, some of these settings that I carefully changed are now different. Well, this is one that I've seen changed, but I don't want to let my advertising ID be used for outside sources. So you can, it's default is set to on. I choose to set it off. I'm okay if my handwriting gets used by Microsoft to improve their handwriting recognition. So anyway, there's some choices here under privacy that have application, including what background apps are running and what has access to my camera and things like that. So under privacy, some of these are useful. I won't spend any more time with that. So securing your PC, I made this comment before, please be sure you have antivirus. The Windows firewall that comes free with Windows 10 and Windows Defender, they are not appropriate security software. You need to have a purchased antivirus. So PBSI does online security monitoring. We use Bitdefender for antivirus. Whether you use PBSI services, which I'd highly recommend, or you use Norton or Symantec or whatever else, be sure you have an antivirus. Okay. Browser setup and browser defaults. I won't demonstrate this, but a couple of key points. Microsoft Edge is the new browser that comes with Windows 10. And it's good for what it does, but a lot of things it does not do, so it's really not ready for prime time. It's fine to use as a browser as long as you don't get excluded from an app. But whether you use Edge or Internet Explorer, Microsoft wants to set them to use Bing, and they want to make it really difficult. So the instructions are here in this section that you'll receive that tells you how to change. If you want to change your default to Google, if you want to change your search providers to even find Google, it can be really frustrating. You have to really look carefully on the screen. So the settings here describe how to do that and how to make them your default. And then finally at the bottom of this document is if you have upgraded Windows 10 and you want to turn back, you must do it within 30 days of the upgrade, or you'll no longer be able to downgrade. So within 30 days, these are the choices you make to go back to Windows 7. Okay, so some of these settings, hopefully this is useful. I wouldn't expect anybody to remember all the things we just covered, but I do want to, we've learned so much over hundreds of PCs that we want to help. So this basically is a summary of Windows 10. I'm going to move on now to a completely new topic, Microsoft OneNote. So I won't spend a long time with this, but it's an application that I've just found so useful. We're not trying to sell product. This is a free app, but I entered into the OneNote world maybe a year and a half ago and thought, I don't know exactly what this is going on. And what I've learned over time is it's become central to my organizational life. So my to-do list, meeting notes, project information, sharing and collaborating of work, home information. We're going to just talk about and demonstrate a bit how this works. So we have this handout that you'll receive. So these are the applications that you might consider. So to-do list and meeting notes being preeminently important, but some of these others are really useful as well. So the way OneNote is organized, I'm going to describe here in a second, is you have a notebook, you give it a name, My Notebook, and then you have sections, which I think of as tabs and pages. So with that, I'm going to go to Microsoft OneNote, and you see this is my actual live OneNote. So I have a tab called Webinars, and I have some information on this particular tab or section that is specifically for demonstrating today. So my real to-do list is right here. So I have this highlighted. The first thing on my to-do list is OneNote webinar content, and literally when I'm finished with it, it's gone from here. And this is how the thing works, is you add, change, and rearrange items. And when you want to change the highlighting or the prioritization, there's a set of choices you have where you can identify how is this or this other thing prioritized. So do I want to say that this one's critical? Do I want to organize it in a certain way so I can find all the critical things? Some really useful information. But basically, you're just manipulating, and when this thing is gone and I want to cut it and paste it over here because it's in a different category, it's simply my electronic tool. So what I used to do at my desk, I had a note paper, and if I'd been there for 3 days and hadn't gathered all my notes, I'd have 3 pieces of note paper with a bunch of scratch written on it. Now I just have OneNote up at my desk all the time, and I make my notes about what I need to do next here. And when I go home, it's on my iPad, it's on my iPhone, it's on every device to which I'm connected. So you have notebooks and sections. So that section, in my case, is called to-do list. So I also have other notebooks. I have a notebook that I collaborate with our controller on, a notebook where we're sharing information, so collection procedures and our back and forth conversation and links to documents inside here. So if I click on this document, I'm not going to do that now, but it would go out, and so we don't have to edit together. We can say, here's a document that's related to this topic, and this thing's been done, that thing's not been done. So this is not a part of my notebook. There's Ray's notebook. That's a different notebook to which I've been invited. So I have a couple of those, but most people, you have just one notebook, and it's mostly for myself. So webinars, here's some things I'm going to demonstrate. So how can you use information in OneNote? So you can type information into it, and this is really for demonstration. This is the least effective, in my opinion, way to do this. If I have a lot of details, I want to have a link to the document. So I have a speaker notes document that this links to, and these are the notes I accumulated and kept modifying as I was preparing the content today, and so I can link and keep that link with me wherever I go. Noting that if I'm linking to the cloud, then it's on my iPad. If I'm linking to my server, then I only have access to this when I'm in the office. So where you place the files that get shared are relevant here. So you can link to documents, pictures. So here's a picture of an email. I just took a snapshot and stuck it in here. So you can embed pictures, photographs, whatever. You can put videos. There's some really interesting thing I want to note here in the middle of my screen. If you see this dark area, this is a snapshot of an iPhone screen. That's my iPhone screen. And the iPhone and iPad versions have a feature that the PC version doesn't, and that is to take a live picture. So this is a snapshot of the screen where I'm in a OneNote, I'm making notes, I'm in a construction store accumulating information about specs for a remodel that we're doing at home, and I want to take a picture of something. Click, take picture, and there's the item embedded. So I can't demonstrate that, so I'm showing you that when you're using an iPhone or an iPad, you just take the picture. So if you're in a client's office and you want to take a picture of something that's there or whatever, instead of storing it in your photos, you can store it right in your document. So you can have images, you can have links to images like this. Same image, it's just a link instead. So photos you can do, videos you can do. So I have a pre-recorded video that I did this morning. Here's the video. If I wanted to do a new video right now, I would simply say, insert video. I'm now making a live video. You're listening to me. This is my video for today. Thank you very much. Stored. So there's my video. It's now embedded in my OneNote. So you can do that with pictures on an iPhone. You can do it with videos if you have a camera on your PC. So the way you can gather data is interesting. So now I'm going to move to meetings because there's something else that's really important. So this demonstration meeting I set up for demonstrating. So when I'm in a meeting with a client, generally I have my Microsoft Surface and I'm using a pen to make notes in hand. So I can type. So I can type right here and type when I'm in a meeting. Sometimes I do that, but sometimes I make handwritten notes. So later on, I come back to the office, I'm just dragging my mouse around this area, right-clicking and say ink to text. And it took that handwriting. I write notes often, but frequently not legible. And in fact, it's true. My notes are frequently not legible. So I'm going to do this again with this set of text, ink to text. And here, did a pretty good job. Most of the time, I had a meeting with a client yesterday. So this is not giving up any secrets here, but I know my normal handwriting. So when I do this, unless I've really been careful about it, then the ink to text doesn't really work quite as well. So I'm going to undo that and not save that change. So meetings, right. So I have my Microsoft Surface with me right now. I'm using my PC. That's what I'm using for demonstrating. That's where I'm speaking. And I am going to go to this tab called Live Webinar Meeting. Right now, with a pen in my hand, I am adding a new, I'm really handwriting this. I know you can't see it yet. Note. So I just finished that. I didn't do any update. I didn't do any synchronization. I just wrote it. And so my Microsoft Surface communicated over the web, synchronized with my PC, and there's my handwritten note. So I handwrote it on my Microsoft Surface just a few seconds ago, and now it's a text note on my OneNote on my PC. So in this way, you're collaborating between all of your devices, Androids, Apples, whatever. Really, really useful. So you can see why I've gotten away from paper entirely. I just don't need to carry paper around with me. So some other applications. Here is, we're doing a construction project at home. I took a clip from a website where we ordered this. I took some dimensions of things that we need to order so I could calculate how many sheets are needed. So I have some dimensions here. I have some pictures that I took when we were in a store, and I just took the pictures right on the spot and embedded it right here. And one of the things that's really cool, I'm going to demonstrate something here. So I'm going to say if I had 12 sheets times 3, that would be, and as soon as I press my space bar, it filled in the math. So it does multiplication, addition, subtraction. Kind of interesting. OneNote knows some things that Excel and Word don't know. Okay, so you have meeting notes. Each different meeting note gets a tab, to-do list. For home, one other thing, I keep a list of my home devices. So our filter change, I keep forgetting what the heck do I do? What buttons do I press to make it find the new filter? So I put it in OneNote so I know where we ordered the filter last time, blah, blah, blah. So you can think for yourself. I keep my prayer list. I keep different information. Here's one tab. The last thing I'm going to demonstrate is this is password protected. So if I want to enter in my password, I can, but I'm not going to do that. So you can password protect or share. So I could invite somebody to this tab or this certain whatever underneath. So you can share certain parts of your OneNote. Okay, enough demonstration. Hopefully that's of interest. It's a great application, and not trying to sell anything because there's nothing to sell. But if you'd like help with establishing this and collaborating, it's certainly related to cloud hosting. So last topic, I'm going to be brief with this, but cloud hosting. So the first thing, we've found some really useful applications for cloud hosting, and for PBSI clients, you will see us doing more and more providing shared locations for documents that are accessible by customers. So instead of going to a website and logging in, if you have secure access, you'll be able to go and get sample crystal reports or other documents from a private but shared website. So where is web sharing really useful? Multi-location access, home and office, share the same documents, they live in the cloud instead of on your server. Multi-device access, where I need it on my PC and maybe some on non-Microsoft devices, where availability is critical. I can't afford, if my internet's down, excuse me, that would be wrong. If your internet's down, you can't access the cloud, but if my server's down or I'm not located where I can get to it or I can't log into it, I can get to the cloud. So if you're concerned about backup, the security issues, I won't spend much time here, but the security issues of cloud documents have really been resolved. This was a big concern of mine and of ours. We're a security company. We are very cautious about this, but security in the cloud now, as long as you make the right choices, is very, very good, and reliability will be better because information is stored across multiple servers in almost every case where you're doing cloud sharing. So if you're avoiding, you're thinking, I want to get rid of and not have to pay for or buy a new server when we need a new server, avoiding the need to buy and maintain hardware in-house. So I'm going to quickly link to this document about cloud sharing and say that there are a bunch of choices and a bunch of free or quote free choices. It turns out that the more you use these things, the more you realize that you can fill up storage and you do need to start paying, but still quite inexpensive. Between Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, and OneDrive for Business, that's the great majority of the marketplace. So Adobe and Dropbox and Box, and there's lots of other vendors that are perfectly capable, but for most of us, we'll use OneDrive, OneDrive for Business, or Google Drive. So it really is a matter of convenience. There are additional security and privilege options available under OneDrive for Business that don't exist in Google Drive, but for most applications, Google Drive is just fine. We support and help clients set up either. So the key things to know security-wise are, with all of these applications, there's an automatic VPN set, so data is always encrypted in transit. So when you are storing or retrieving a document from the cloud, if you're using Google Drive or OneDrive, and most major vendors, data in transit is always encrypted. Data at rest, the only one of these major products, OneDrive does not encrypt data at rest, which simply means that if you had social security numbers in an unencrypted file or patient information, you would not store that on OneDrive, but you can store it on OneDrive for Business or Google Drive. OneDrive for Business, if I didn't say this, comes with Microsoft Office 365, or you can purchase it separately for a monthly fee of $2 or $3 or $4 per month per user for OneDrive for Business. So that's if you want the security and you don't want to spend money on OneDrive, then go to Google Drive. They're very comparable options. So with any of these choices, the sharing becomes really easy. So if I wanted to share on my Google Drive, I'm sharing with an organization where I'm on the board, I'm sharing with another client, I'm sharing with myself, and in each case here within PBSI, we have web portals for clients that these are customizations for Outlook that any client could get to. Now, if you're a client, you haven't been invited to this yet, this is something that is coming. We'll be publishing some really useful things that you'll have access to, PBSI solutions and other things that are no charge and simply stored there because they're universally available. So it's very easy to right-click and share, change sharing, change permissions, and all these files are synchronized real-time. So I'm on a board. The board shares all of the relevant documents that are financial or development, or and it's very, very convenient. So you don't have to wait for the committee chair to publish reports. You know that the most current version is always there on Google Drive. So the need to share documents, the ability to do it successfully today is there, and some setup things that are really key. Choose the product, but don't use personal emails. If you're going to use a Gmail account, then I wouldn't recommend inviting employees in to use their personal Gmail account. Set up instead of Ray home at Gmail, set up a ray.pbsi at Gmail and a bill.pbsi at Gmail, because they're free to set up, and now you have controllable security where if somebody leaves the organization, you don't have to worry about their personal email still lingering. So set up personal emails. And then one other comment about this is go all in or don't go. By that I mean, do we copy files and put them on the cloud? And while people will make their own choices, there's an evil in this, and I want to recommend if you're going to move some documents to the cloud, cut and paste. Don't copy and paste, because if they live in both places, you will have the long-term risk of somebody updating the local copy or the web copy, and you'll never synchronize them again. So this is just the word of the wise from lots of experience. When the choice comes to have a copy in the cloud, unless they're synchronized, another choice, I would not keep them in both locations. So we're happy to give information in more depth, but each of you will get the handouts for each of these areas we talked about today. So having moved quickly, Microsoft Windows, OneNote, and some cloud sharing information. Hopefully this is helpful. It's almost 1 o'clock. We will be finished before 1 o'clock. So should you upgrade to Windows 10, it is a personal thing. Should you or will you share documents in the cloud? We've come 360 degrees in the past year, and we're now feeling like there are more and more applications where this is beneficial. And this may or may not be true for you, but we're happy to help if you want information. Same thing with OneNote. If you'd like some information, we're available, or contact me. I'm happy to help. It's a personal favorite. That's how it got into a webinar. And the same is true with other security or Windows applications. We're here to help. So these webinars are intended to be free for information, just to help people avoid going through the same learning processes that we've gone through. We'll continue to try and search topics that are of general interest. So if you have interest in using PBSI for services professionally, please contact us. Of course, we're interested in open, and many of you already do, and thank you very much. So I want to say we are finished with today's content, and I want to thank you for your